They said I didn't look like I outrank anyone. At a military gala. In front of 50 defense contractors and a senator's aide who nodded in agreement. I smiled. Thanked them for their observation. Because in 6 minutes, they'd see the 3 stars on my shoulder when I took the stage. The venue was the Grand Hyatt in Arlington. Annual Defense Innovation Summit. Black tie event. The kind of evening where defense contractors network with Pentagon officials over cocktails that cost $40 and conversations worth millions. I arrived at 1900 hours. Evening gown. Simple. Black. Elegant but not flashy. Hair down, which I rarely do. Minimal jewelry except for a small American flag pin on my left shoulder strap. The kind of detail most people wouldn't notice unless they knew what to look for. The ballroom was already full. Round tables with white linens. Crystal glasses catching chandelier light. Men in tuxedos. Women in gowns. Everyone important or pretending to be. I checked in at the registration desk. The volunteer, college student, probably doing it for credit, looked at my name tag twice. This says General, she said, confused. That's correct. She glanced at my gown. My hair. My face, which apparently didn't match whatever image she had in her mind. Like, an honorary title, or like a rank. I said politely. She handed me the credential anyway, still looking uncertain, and pointed toward the main ballroom. I thanked her and walked in. The first interaction happened at the bar. I was ordering sparkling water, didn't drink at these functions, never did, when a man in his 50s stepped beside me in tuxedo. Defense contractor lapel pin from Lockheed. First time at one of these, he asked. Friendly enough. Probably thought he was being welcoming. No. I said. I've attended before. Oh, are you with one of the companies? Or maybe you're +1. He smiled. The kind of smile that assumed I couldn't possibly be here in an official capacity. I'm with the Department of Defense. Ah. Administrative staff. He flagged the bartender. That's great. Important work, keeping everything running behind the scenes. Someone's got to do the paperwork, right? I didn't correct him. I took my water and nodded politely. He continued talking, something about procurement timelines and budget cycles, as if explaining my own organization to me. When he finally paused, I excused myself. Well, enjoy the evening, he said. Mingle. These events are great for meeting people above your pay grade. He winked. I smiled. I'll keep that in mind. 30 minutes later, I was standing near the silent auction display. Signed memorabilia. Gift baskets. A weekend at some resort in Napa. The kind of items that let people feel generous while networking. A woman approached. Late 40s. Elegant. Senator's aide, according to her credential. Excuse me, she said, do you know where the coat check is? Down the main corridor, left past the restrooms, I told her. Thank you. She paused. Are you military or civilian? Military. She looked surprised. Really? What do you do? Leadership and strategic planning. Oh, so like, junior officer. Lieutenant? That's wonderful. My nephew just joined the army. She said it with that tone. The one that suggests we're in the same category. Young. Junior. Learning the ropes. Something like that. I said. She smiled warmly. Encouraging. Well, keep at it. Work hard and maybe someday you'll make colonel. That's when the real influence starts, I hear. I'll remember that. The worst part came during the reception hour, before dinner service. I was reviewing the evening's program. I was keynote speaker, though most people hadn't read that far down, when two men joined the standing table where I'd set my folder. Both contractors. Both confident. Both talking loudly about acquisition strategy and how the brass doesn't understand modern warfare. One of them noticed me. "You look lost," he said. Not unkindly. Just assuming. These events can be overwhelming if you're new to the DoD world. "I'm managing," I said. "What branch?" the other asked. "Army." "Enlisted or officer?" "Officer." They exchanged looks. Impressed, maybe. Or surprised. "That's great," the first one said. "We need more women in uniform." "What rank?" I could have told them, right then. Could have watched their faces change. Instead, I said, "I've been in for a while." "Captain," one guessed. "Maybe Major," the other offered. "You've got that competent energy. I bet you run a tight admin shop." They both laughed. Friendly. Collegial. Totally certain they'd assessed me correctly. "The thing is," the first contractor continued, leaning in like he was sharing wisdom, "at events like this, rank matters. You don't look like you outrank anyone here, so you've got to work twice as hard to get face time with decision makers. That's just reality." The other nodded. "Exactly. No offense, but presence matters. The generals, the DoD executives, they respond to people who look the part." "Good to know," I said. They kept talking. Gave me advice about building relationships and getting noticed by senior leadership. Told me which tables to avoid, that's where the real power players sit, and which ones might be more my speed. I listened. Smiled when appropriate. Let them fill in every blank. What none of them knew, what they couldn't have known from looking at my evening gown and making assumptions, was that I'd spent 28 years earning the 3 stars on my shoulder. Not metaphorical stars. Actual rank. Lieutenant General. 3rd highest rank in the United States Army. I commanded 75,000 soldiers across multiple installations. I deployed 4 times. Commanded at every level from platoon to division. Sat in situation rooms during operations that decided whether people lived or died. Made calls that affected strategy across theaters. My last assignment before this one was Deputy Commanding General of Combined Arms, where I'd overseen doctrine development and force modernization. Before that, I'd been the first woman to command a heavy brigade combat team in active combat operations. The defense contractors giving me career advice. I'd sat across from their CEOs in acquisition meetings where I'd decided which contracts got funded and which didn't. The senator's aide suggesting I work toward colonel someday. I'd briefed her boss, the actual senator, on force posture and readiness assessments just last month. The man at the bar talking about people above my pay grade. My salary was a matter of public record. GS 15 equivalent. Higher than most people in that ballroom. But I couldn't say that. Not because it was classified. Because it wasn't how these things worked. I'd been invited to this summit as the keynote speaker 6 months ago. The organizers knew exactly who I was. My bio was in the program. My remarks had been coordinated with the Secretary's office. The topic was Adaptive Leadership in Modern Warfare. 25 minutes. Followed by Q&A with defense industry leaders and policy experts. I'd spent weeks preparing. Not because I didn't know the material, I'd lived it, but because these events mattered. What I said would be quoted. Analyzed. Used to shape conversations in boardrooms and congressional offices. My speech was on a flash drive in my evening bag. 43 pages of remarks. Every word chosen carefully. Every example vetted. Every statistic confirmed. I'd practice delivery, pacing, pauses, where to make eye contact, where to let silence work. Because I wasn't just representing myself. I was representing every woman in uniform who'd been underestimated. Every junior officer who'd been dismissed. Every soldier who'd been told they didn't look the part. While contractors gave me networking advice, I watched the room. I saw who talked to whom. Which defense executives clustered together. Which Pentagon officials were actually influential and which ones just had impressive titles. I recognized faces from meetings, from briefings, from the secure video conferences that happened in rooms these people would never enter. Some of them recognized me too. A few caught my eye across the room and nodded. Respectful. Knowing. They'd read the program. But most hadn't. Most had seen the cocktail hour as networking time, not reading time. Most had assumed they knew who mattered and who didn't based on age, gender, and whether someone looked powerful. I let them assume. Because in about 90 minutes, the summit organizer would take the stage. Would introduce the keynote speaker. Would read my bio, the full version, including combat commands and current assignment. And then I'd walk up to that podium in my black evening gown and talk about adaptive leadership while they realized I'd been standing among them the entire time. A junior Army officer, actual junior, a first lieutenant, recognized me near the dessert table. His eyes went wide. Started to salute before remembering we were in civilian clothes at a formal event. "Ma'am," he said quietly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Captain," I said. He'd make captain soon, I knew that from his assignment. "Enjoying the evening?" "Yes, ma'am." Should I?" He gestured vaguely, unsure of protocol. "Just enjoy the summit," I told him. "We'll pretend we haven't met until after my remarks." He nodded. Understood immediately. Melted back into the crowd. That's discipline. That's knowing when to speak and when silence serves better. The contractors who'd advised me about getting face time with decision makers walked past again. Didn't give me a second glance. Were deep in conversation about a contract proposal they hoped would get general-level approval. I knew that proposal. Had reviewed it last week. Had questions about their cost projections and integration timeline. But I let them talk. Let them feel confident. Let them think they were among the people who mattered while the woman they dismissed stood 3 feet away holding sparkling water. Silence does something to people. It lets them reveal exactly what they think. Exactly what they assume. Exactly where their biases sit. And sometimes, that information is more valuable than anything you could say. At 2000 hours, the lights dimmed. Conversations faded. People found their assigned seats. I'd been standing, deliberately hadn't sat at the head table yet. The summit organizer took the stage. Former Four-Star Admiral. Retired. Now ran a think tank. He'd known me for 15 years, had been one of my mentors when I was a lieutenant colonel. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "thank you for joining us this evening." Standard opening. Thanked sponsors. Acknowledged VIPs in attendance. The senator. The undersecretary. Key defense executives. Then he shifted. Tonight's keynote address focuses on adaptive leadership, the kind of strategic thinking our military needs as we face evolving threats in an increasingly complex global environment. The contractor who'd told me I didn't look like I outranked anyone was at table 7. I could see him from where I stood at the back. He was checking his phone. "Our speaker tonight brings a unique perspective," the Admiral continued. 28 years of service. For combat deployments. Commands at every echelon from platoon to division. A few people started paying attention now. Combat deployments got respect. Division-level command meant serious responsibility. She was the first woman to command a heavy brigade combat team in active operations. She's led modernization efforts that have reshaped how we fight. And currently, she serves as the Deputy Commanding General of U.S. Army Futures Command. The contractor at table 7 put his phone down. Please join me in welcoming, the Admiral paused, let the moment build, Lieutenant General Mitchell. The room stood. Applause. Formal. Respectful. I walked toward the stage from the back of the ballroom. Deliberately took the long route. Walked past table 7. Past the bar where I'd been told about pay grades. Past the spot where the senator's aide had encouraged me to, maybe someday make colonel. The contractor saw me coming. His face went white. Then red. Then white again. The senator's aide's mouth opened. Just opened. No words came out. The man from the bar, the one who'd asked if I was +1, looked like he was doing math in his head. Complicated math. Math that wasn't adding up to anything he wanted to be true. I didn't look at any of them directly. Didn't need to. Just walked past with the same polite expression I'd worn all evening. When I reached the stage, the Admiral shook my hand. Leaned in. I heard you've been getting networking advice all evening, he whispered. Someone's going to need a drink after this. Several someones, I whispered back. He stepped aside. I took the podium. 3 stars on my Army service uniform would have been visible. But I wasn't wearing my uniform, this was black tie. So instead, the screen behind me lit up with my official photo. Dress blues. 3 stars clearly visible on each shoulder. The seal of the Department of the Army. My full rank and title. I didn't start with the prepared remarks. Not immediately. Instead, I looked out at the room. Let the silence settle. Let people finish processing what they were seeing. Good evening, I said finally. For those I spoke with during the reception, it's nice to formally meet you. Nervous laughter. A lot of it. I was told earlier that at events like this, rank matters. That presence matters. That people respond to those who've looked the part. I paused. That's absolutely true. More silence. Uncomfortable now. The question is, what does the part look like? I let that hang there. For 28 years, I've heard various answers. Too young. Too female. Not aggressive enough. Too aggressive. Doesn't look command ready. Doesn't fit the traditional mold. I smiled. Small. Controlled. And yet, somehow, 75,000 soldiers currently under my command seem to manage just fine. A few people laughed. Real laughs this time. Some of the senior military officers in attendance. People who'd been underestimated themselves. Tonight, I'm going to talk about adaptive leadership. About strategic thinking in complex environments. About the ability to assess situations, gather information, and make decisions based on reality rather than assumptions. I looked directly at table 7. And I'm going to suggest that if we can't recognize expertise when it's standing in front of us at a cocktail reception, we might want to examine how well we're adapting to anything else. The contractor looked down. Studied his water glass like it held secrets. The next 23 minutes were the speech I'd prepared. Professional. Substantive. The kind of strategic analysis that reminded everyone in the room why I held the rank I held. I talked about multi-domain operations. Joint force integration. The evolution of great power competition. I used examples from my commands, my deployments, my experience in rooms where decisions got made. I was calm. Controlled. Intelligent. Exactly the brand personality silent rank required. Every few minutes, I'd pause. Let a point land. Let silence do the work. The room was completely focused now. People taking notes. Recording key phrases. The kind of attention you get when credibility is established and demonstrated simultaneously. When I finished, the applause was different. Longer. Genuine. The kind that's about respect, not just politeness. During Q&A, the first question came from a defense executive. Softball. About modernization timelines. The third question came from table 7. The contractor stood. Slowly. Looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. General, he said, and his voice caught slightly on the rank, earlier this evening, I gave you some advice. About networking. And presence. And I realize now that. He stopped. Started again. I apologize. That was inappropriate and presumptuous. The room was silent. Everyone watching. I could have destroyed him. Could have listed every assumption he'd made. Every condescending suggestion. Every piece of advice about my own career field. Instead, I said, I appreciate that. And I'd offer this, the best leaders I've served with were the ones who asked questions before making assessments. Who gathered information before drawing conclusions. Who understood that expertise doesn't always announce itself. I paused. We all make assumptions. The question is whether we're willing to examine them when evidence suggests we might be wrong. He sat down. Nodded. Looking grateful I hadn't eviscerated him publicly. But everyone in that room knew what had happened. Everyone who'd made assumptions. Everyone who'd given me advice about my own career. Everyone who'd decided I didn't look like I outranked them. They knew. The summit ended at 22:30. People lingered. Networked. Processed what they'd witnessed. Several people approached to apologize. The senator's aide. The woman from registration. Others who'd made quick assumptions during the cocktail hour. I was gracious. Professional. Didn't belabor the point. These events are about learning, I told them. For all of us. The contractor from table 7 waited until most people had left. Approached carefully. General, I want to properly apologize. What I said about you not looking like you outrank people. He shook his head. That was ignorant. And I'm embarrassed. I appreciate that, I said. And I'll tell you what I tell junior officers, everyone has blind spots. The difference between good leaders and poor ones is what they do when those blind spots get exposed. He nodded. Grateful. If there's anything I can do. Read the program next time, I said. Small smile. And maybe ask questions before offering career advice. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. He left. Properly chastened. Probably going to tell that story for years, though I doubted he'd come off well in his version. My security detail brought the car around. Standard protocol for 3-star generals, even at civilian events. As we pulled away from the hotel, I saw some of the contractors still standing outside. Smoking. Talking. Probably about what had just happened. One of them saw the car. Saw the DOD plates. Saw me in the back seat. He said something to the others. They all looked. I didn't wave. Didn't acknowledge them. Just looked forward as we drove toward the Pentagon. My phone buzzed. Text from the Admiral who'd introduced me. That was masterful. Same time next year. I smiled. Texted back, if they'll have me. Oh, they'll have you. And next year, they'll actually read the program first. Back at my office in the Pentagon, I changed into my uniform. ACUs. More comfortable than an evening gown, though both served their purpose. My aide, Major Chen, sharp as they came, knocked and entered. How was the summit, ma'am? Educational, I said. For several people. She smiled. She knew. Had probably guessed what kind of evening it would be when she'd seen the attendee list and noticed how few people would recognize me out of uniform. The briefing book for tomorrow's meeting is on your desk, she said. And General Harrison called. Wants your input on the modernization proposal. The one from the contractor at the summit? That's the one. I nodded. I'll review it tonight. Have some questions about their timeline projections. Yes, ma'am. She left. I sat down at my desk. Opened the proposal. Started reading with the same careful attention I gave everything. Because this was the actual work. Not cocktail receptions. Not networking events. Not impressing people who'd already decided what I could or couldn't do. This. Strategy. Analysis. Decisions that affected readiness and capability and the soldiers who deploy based on what we decided here. Before I left for the night, I drafted an email to the junior lieutenant who'd recognized me at the summit. The one who'd almost saluted in civilian clothes. Lieutenant, good to see you at the summit. You handled that situation with discretion and professionalism. That awareness, knowing when to speak and when silence serves the mission better, will serve you well as you advance. Keep it up. V/R, LTG Mitchell. He'd remember that. Would maybe tell that story to other junior officers someday. About the time he saw a 3-star general get career advice from contractors who thought she was a captain. And maybe it would remind him that rank, expertise, and authority don't always announce themselves. That assumptions are dangerous. That the smartest move is often to ask questions instead of drawing conclusions. 40-minute drive to my quarters. Dark roads. Security detail quiet in the front. I thought about the contractor's face when he'd realized. The aide's shock. The bartender's confusion when he'd seen me take the stage. I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel vindicated. Just tired. The same tired that comes after any long day of doing the work that matters. Because that's what this was about. Not proving anything. Not teaching lessons. Not embarrassing people who'd underestimated me. Just doing my job. Leading soldiers. Making decisions. Serving. And if some people learned something along the way about assumptions and respect and the danger of judging expertise by appearance, that was a bonus. But it wasn't the point. The point was the 75,000 soldiers. The missions. The readiness. The strategy. Everything else was just noise. I didn't correct them. I didn't explain. They found out on their own. Silence is the rank. Subscribe if you understand.
If you enjoyed the story, subscribe now for stories where silence outranks noise, and the truth always shows up eventually.